Spencer.
It's your boy JT.
And this is The Itch.
Where we talk about
Destiny, the Dark Below. Believe it. Believe it.
Right, get a Naruto thing just come out there.
Obviously, Destiny had its little expansion come out this week.
Yeah, this past week, and good for them.
That's
an
good
expansion.
Good start. We're getting into some weird territory with online gaming.
Yeah, they definitely want to. They're definitely trying to branch out and show the promised story.
Sorry,
I use
he just
quotations.
loves you too much.
Yeah, I know, right? The promised story of, and I use quotations because fucking what, make of it what you will, of what Bungie's shooter is. Bit of a problem. And that problem, ladies and gentlemen, is the fact that when Bungie released its DLC, they essentially, you okay, buddy?
I'm not used to Miller High Life champagne of beers.
But when you have a life, get high, Miller.
Make it a Miller time.
Anyway, pretty much what ended up happening, and this could either be a like just a small error with adding in new gameplay elements, or it could just be what Bungie wants to do at the end of the day, was they locked out a lot of its players who didn't actually purchase the DLC. Now, what does anyone mean by that? For those of you that haven't played Destiny, when you reach the quote-unquote end game, when you get to a level where you're kind of doing the same content over and over and over, they spice it up. They add in what's called Nightfall, which you can't die, and you have to complete a
You can die.
Well, okay. Well, if you all die, it kicks you out, and you have to restart the whole thing. It's pretty much like playing Halo 2 on fucking what's it called Legendary. And if one guy dies, back to checkpoint. But worse. If everyone dies, you're out of the fucking game. And there's no like respawn timer. Someone has to revive you. So play smart. And then obviously they have their weekly, just like normal, like, hey, just beat this freaking dungeon. All right, you're done. Cool. Out of here. And then dailies and this and the third. Well, the problem is when they released their DLC, The Dark Below, what ended up happening was they alienated the audience that did not get the DLC. The weeklies, Nightfall and just Weekly Raid, were for The Dark Below. Now, granted, I can see this is too...
It's just funny because you're talking about the high level content, and I would be one of those people that didn't buy it.
Yeah.
But it's also worth noting that I've had it for almost a month, and I'm still level 7.
You're like, fuck it. Whatever.
The only leveling I did was I handed it to my kid and just had her play, and she's obviously terrible at it, but she's the only one that's been gaining experience on that account. But anyway, continue.
Oh my god. But they ended up alienating their audience. The Dark Below pretty much only had the DLC as the weekly and whatnot. And what's interesting of note is Bungie hadn't really thought of a way, or at least they haven't demonstrated that they thought of a way to include the people who didn't get the DLC and the people that did. Now, most games, when they're released, they do. They offer that form. They offer some level of like, all right, well, your experience isn't too hampered, but we encourage you. It's more incentive. It's not forcing. And in this case, a lot of people are coming off as they're being stiff-armed into getting the DLC to fully enjoy the game that just, less than 2 weeks ago, they could play without any difficulties or troubles, or have to wait a week before they could max out a particular weapon or to get more materials for said weapon or gear.
And to put this in perspective, you were only allowed one Nightfall a week. You were allowed one dungeon per week that was on a Nightfall difficulty, and the same one was then also done on Heroic. You could only complete them once and get the reward.
Yes.
If you didn't buy the DLC, that aspect of the game is gone. Like, you have no Nightfall, you have no Heroic. You don't get the option to do those unless you go spend, what is it, $35, $20?
It's $20. The thing though is, it's at least for this week. We don't know. I don't think they've reset as of yet. So this week they fucking screwed people out. Next week we don't even know. No one knows for sure what they're gonna do. And we're actually gonna quote somebody here. According to the website on Forbes, make of that what you will. A writer, Eric Kane, actually did up the article essentially saying the same thing we did. He also reached out to Bungie to provide more of insight as to what's actually going on. and received kind of a what's it called, like
Roundabout.
circular reasoning, which is just, what'd you say, roundabout?
Roundabout.
Yeah, where pretty much he's just like, hey, the game will offer this content to people who don't get it. But they don't really talk about the people who don't have the DLC, what they plan on doing for them for weeklies, if anything. It seems like at this point, it can only get worse with the more DLC they have come out, because that's more chances for a weekly that they haven't bought to deal with. Now, some games, like I said, a good example of this is like Battlefield. Battlefield, right? Weird. For Battlefield's DLC, Battlefield 4's DLC that they add in, you can't play the levels. Sure, the weapons are still there. Other people can use the weapons. It's not unbalanced though. And as far as the actual stages go, yeah, you can only play the stages that you purchase. Okay, but that doesn't mean you can't interact with people who have those stages. You just can't play on them with them. Okay, it doesn't really ruin the experience. It's just, and it doesn't stop you from having fun. It doesn't stop your progression. That's where the big disconnect is. I don't know, how you guys feel about it necessarily, but I think it's kind of bullshit.
I think Bungie keeps making mistakes and then having to go back and fix them.
Yeah,
it's kind of a lot along the lines of Xbox.
Yeah,
the way I see it, and whenever I do these kinds of like analysis of things, I always try to pull maybe an extreme example of stuff.
Uh-huh.
So, granted, this is one little dungeon or whatever, one little Nightfall. I'm not huge into Destiny, so bear with me on this. Again, level 7. But when I look at this kind of thing, I try to go the extreme route and say, what if in a game they offered online multiplayer, and then they released an expansion and said, you can only keep playing the online multiplayer part of it if you buy the expansion. That just tells me that they offered something, and then when they released the expansion, the people that bought the original copy didn't get what they paid for. So you can translate this back to Destiny and say, maybe some people bought the game just so they could play these Nightfall difficulty dungeons. They're like, that sounds
to
like
be tested.
That sounds like what I want to do in a game. So they bought it for that, and now if they don't buy that expansion, they're getting denied that, even though that's why they bought the game.
Yeah, some people do prefer a PvE, which is player versus environment kind of environment.
Mm-hmm.
They want to play with their friends and just, like play cooperatively with their buddies. Like, all right, hey, let's do the hardest mission as a team. I'm not gonna lie, I'm actually like that. I do prefer that. I like my PvP though.
Myself.
I love my PvP.
Well.
Right?
Yes. As myself.
But me as myself. But yes, you are. But the thing is, though, is some people just don't want to get DLC. Some people just, they have a stigma against it, and for whatever reason that is. And oftentimes, a company who handles this type of business model has to be able to adapt. And in this case, they're just killing an audience. And that's kind of where we're at right now. We don't know what they're going to do. And honestly, I don't think any other game has really done it that way and walked out in a positive light. I don't think a game's ever done that like that.
I got a question.
What?
Put your hand up if you've bought DLC before. In the last 3 months?
Last 3 months.
Mario Kart, bitches.
You know what? Dark Souls 2. Which, Dark Souls 2. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
But that was actually...
You both lose.
To be honest, though, Mario Kart was the only DLC I've ever bought.
Really?
Only?
The only DLC.
Fucking newbie. Look at this guy.
I don't like DLC.
It's my first time.
I find DLC really offensive.
Did you have to look
no,
up like a guide?
I agree with you, Spencer. DLC is a waste of money. And it's just them... They're finding a way to give you a portion, like it's like they sell you a pizza and then they're like, if you want cheese, then you got to pay another $25.
Well, I mean, if you do want cheese, you have to put
they do that.
Like,
in reality.
But
I mean, what's the last time you've been to a pizza store?
What I think my big complaint would be, and this goes doubly for Destiny. I think we can all agree on this once you hear what I'm about to say, because you're not fortune tellers. But when you look at Destiny and you say, was Destiny the $60 version, was that the full game that they could have released? And I think anybody would say no. Like, they clearly didn't release the full game.
Yeah, they chopped up bits.
So I think DLC, unfortunately, in this generation is is going to be seen as a crutch, where people say, well, we released 75% of the game, and then 25% of the game we're going to make you pay for additionally.
No one has the right formula yet.
Right, which that part is bullshit.
I do have to say, the wrong formula is to release a game and within the same year put out DLC.
How about the same day?
Yeah, oh my god. That's why there's so many problems with that. That's why EA purposely, I don't know if you guys have heard about this, EA purposely didn't have day one DLC for Dragon Age Inquisition because they got so much shit. EA normally does day one DLC. And they purposely did not do that because they're like, hey, we just want to ride the train for as long as we can. Is essentially what they were coming to. Like, we just want people to like us. And, lo and behold, it actually worked. But at the end of the day, DLC, you're paying for an experience, no matter what it is. No matter to play as Link or to get 3 different crowns to experience a different story or an added part to the story, it is still an extension of entertainment. It just hasn't been properly hasn't been done correctly yet. No one, I don't think, has really done DLC.
Well, and to translate it into Destiny, it should be an extension. It shouldn't detract from the original game.
It's an extension, not a requirement.
Okay, so here's my opinion on DLC. Don't give me a DLC, give me an expansion.
Okay.
Create an expansion
for me. Well, you're old school, though. You're like World of Warcraft in here. You're all about expansion. You've been babied.
Because you're building an entire game for me. You're not building a couple hours of content for me.
You're building a whole new
You're building
world.
A brand... Yeah.
A new fantastic point of view. Yeah.
Because when I'm...
No, I hear you.
Don't cry.
Way up here, it's crystal clear.
Okay,
all right, sorry.
Yeah, pretty much. There's a lot of things that DLC has done wrong, and while it hasn't been perfected, this is definitely not the right way to go about doing it.
Absolutely.
So,
take it away, Eric.
All right, guys. Thanks for checking us out. Be sure to comment, like, and subscribe to our channel.